We're diving straight in today, tackling that huge question, the one that probably nags anyone looking into Buddhist thought. Is Kamma just absolute destiny? If our past actions have locked in our future, if we're basically just living out a pre-written script, then does effort to change really mean anything? That really cuts right to the heart of it, and honestly is probably the biggest misunderstanding floating around. If Kamma did mean total predetermination, then the whole purpose of practicing morality, meditation, developing wisdom, it would all be pointless, right? Our mission is to delve into the Pāli canonical sources to clearly show the opposite is true. Kamma is not the chain of fate. Kamma is actually the strongest argument for radical self-sovereignty, for true free will right here in the present moment. So, what truly is Kamma? We need to define Kamma not as some cosmic judge deciding our fate. Kamma is fundamentally presented as the natural law of cause and effect, Kamma vipaka, like physics, but the physics of intention and consequence, and it's flexible. You often hear Kamma discussed as if it were a cosmic balance sheet where deeds from lifetimes ago are tallied up and we're just now passively collecting the interest. This implies a fixed path, an unchanging outcome. That is fatalism, and it leads to apathy. Nothing I do matters. But Kamma is an impersonal law, not divine, dispensed by no external agent. If it's a natural law like gravity, then even if the law operates consistently, doesn't understanding how it works allow us to navigate it rather than just being helplessly pulled along? Buddhism emphasizes self-sovereignty, the ability and necessity to intervene in that causal flow right now. The Buddha actively argued against purely deterministic philosophies, like the Ajivikas, who believed everything was governed by niyati, fate, and human effort was meaningless. Thus, the Buddha's assertion that effort, and especially intention, cetanā, has tangible consequences was revolutionary. So how was Kamma actually created? The focus shifts dramatically inward. The Buddha clearly stated, "It is intention, cetanā, that I declare to be Kamma. Having intended, one acts by body, speech, and mind." What exactly is cetanā? Is it just a passing thought? Cetanā is more fundamental. It is volition, the conscious impulse behind an action. It is the force that directs the mind and mobilizes energy for action. Crucially, cetanā is what determines the moral quality of the act, wholesome, kusala, or unwholesome, akusala. If you accidentally knock something over without intention, does that carry the same karmic weight as deliberately pushing it over in anger? No. The physical act isn't the core Kamma. The intention driving the movement is. The process has three parts. 1. Kamma, action plus intention. 2. Cetanā, the volition determining the moral flavor. And 3. Vipaka, the result, experienced simply as pleasant, painful, or neutral sensation. It is our reaction to that vipaka, driven by new cetanā, that creates the next round of Kamma. Placing cetanā at the center makes the system dynamic, dependent on our conscious input. So the question shifts from what bad things did I do in the past to what am I intending in this very moment? If Kamma isn't fixed destiny, where does our actual free will fit in? The Kamma Sutta, SN 35.145, clearly distinguishes between two types of Kamma to address this structure. First is Pura Kamma, old Kamma. The Buddha identified the senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the mind itself as old Kamma. This represents our current psychophysical setup, the vehicle for experiencing the world. Your body and basic mental inclinations are the starting point, the result of the past, right? Freedom, it lies entirely in Nava Kamma, new Kamma. This is any action performed with intention right now in the present moment. This is the critical intervention point. Old Kamma creates the circumstance, maybe a sudden physical pang, or someone says something irritating. But our immediate reaction to that circumstance, driven by our present cetanā, is entirely new Kamma. Think of it. Old Kamma is the mail delivered to your door. The situation happens, you can't stop the mail carrier. But new Kamma is how you choose to react to that mail. Do you open it calmly, rip it up in anger, or file it carefully? You always retain the freedom to shape your cetanā, even when the inherited circumstances are tough. This is incredibly empowering, isn't it? Even if old Kamma creates a strong tendency toward impatience, the freedom to choose a different response is always there. You're the owner of your actions. So what can we do to mitigate the impact of past mistakes? Are we stuck having to experience the full harsh consequences eventually? The answer is definitively yes, we can modify the trajectory. We cannot erase past actions, but we can change how the results of those actions ripen in our current experience. The purpose of the holy life is mastery over Kamma. It's not about erasing the debt, but perhaps changing the payment plan or currency it's paid in. The Buddha rejected the view that every action must yield an exact, fixed, proportional result. Instead, the result is felt according to the person's level of mental and spiritual development. This leads directly to the famous analogy of the salt crystal, Lonakkapala Sutta, AN 3.99. Imagine an undeveloped person, one with limited virtue, concentration, and wisdom. Their mind is small, restricted, like a small cup of water. When this person puts a small lump of salt, a minor, unskillful deed, into that small cup, what happens? The cup becomes undrinkable. That relatively small negative kamma hits them with full force because their mind lacks volume. Now consider the developed person, living the holy life, whose mind is vast, immeasurable, like a great river, cultivated with boundless qualities like loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. If this person commits the exact same small deed, the same lump of salt, and puts it into the Ganges River, what happens? The river absorbs it. You wouldn't even taste the salt. The vastness of the mind dilutes the impact of relatively minor negative kamma. The painful result, vipaka, is transmuted. Instead of intense suffering, it might manifest lightly as a fleeting discomfort experienced and released in this life. How does this translate practically? The result of old kamma, vipaka, manifests primarily as feeling, vedana, pleasant, painful, or neutral. A sudden ache or a wave of sadness that seems to come from nowhere. That could be the vipaka, the ripening of some past action. This is where practice meets reality. Vedana arrives. Now what? If we let Vedana automatically trigger tanha, which includes aversion, I like this pleasant feeling, I want more, or I hate this painful feeling, stop it, we have just generated new, often unskillful navakamma. So, the past delivers the feeling, the sensation, but it is my present intention, my reaction to that feeling, that determines whether I use that feeling as fuel to create more suffering for myself down the line. That is the exact point of intervention. Mindfulness practice, particularly mindfulness of feelings, is designed to insert awareness into the gap between Vedana arriving and tanha reacting. By observing the feeling simply as feeling, noticing its impermanent nature without immediate reaction, we prevent the old kamma's result from automatically triggering new, unskillful navakamma. Mastering the reaction to feeling is mastering kamma. If kamma isn't destiny but manageable, what is the ultimate path to complete escape from the cycle of action and result? The ultimate goal is the cessation of kamma, reaching a state where one no longer creates the intentional actions, cetanā, that lead to future suffering and rebirth. But kamma is intentional action. How can you intentionally act to stop intentional action? This paradox is resolved by the nature of the path itself. The Ariya Magga Sutta, AN 4235, categorizes kamma into 4 types. Type 1, dark, kana, kamma, unwholesome, results in suffering. Type 2, bright, sukha kamma, wholesome, results in happiness. Type 3, dark and bright, kanasku kamma, mixed. What is the 4th type? That must be the escape route, right? The 4th type is the key. Neither dark nor bright kamma. Akanhaskuga kamma. The sutta explicitly identifies this kamma as the noble eightfold path itself. This is kamma whose result is not more kamma. It is defined as the intentional action whose function and result is the cessation of the other 3 types of kamma. It uses cetanā, uses intention specifically to dismantle the roots of intention. What ensures this intentional action actually leads to nibbana, instead of just generating extremely good, bright kamma? The very first factor of the path is absolutely essential. Right view, samaditi. Right view is the deep, penetrating insight into the true nature of reality, specifically understanding the 4 noble truths and dependent origination. Without that understanding, practice might only remain a sophisticated form of bright kamma. Right view orients the practitioner's cetanā towards liberation. When this deep understanding is present, it transforms the quality of the intention behind every other path factor. Right view acts like the rudder, ensuring that the ship of practice is heading towards the shore of nibbana, not just sailing fast around the ocean of samsara. Only right view provides the correct intentional framework for ultimate freedom. We've seen Kamma is not a fixed script. It is a dynamic, workable law of cause and effect, completely governed by intention. Your radical power and freedom lie right here, right now in Kamma. Remember, your body, mind, and senses are Kamma, old Kamma. Every feeling, Vedana, that arises, pleasant, painful, or neutral, is the ripening of that past. You do not choose the feeling that arises, but you are never simply a victim of that history. Where does true freedom lie? It is focusing your awareness and your energy on the one thing that isn't predetermined, your immediate reaction and the moral quality of the cetanā, intention you choose to employ in this very next second. You're the architect of your next moment. So what kind of intention will you choose to build with today?